Okay, so we're ready to start looking at module number 5. So module number 5 is incorporating reference geometry, and we'll see what that is and how we're going to use it so that we can create some non-X, Y, Z plane types of elements. And then we're also going to be creating drawings, continue to create drawings, but this time you're going to find out how to incorporate an auxiliary view, okay, and what an auxiliary view is used for. So it's a little bit different than the standard views that we've used up until this point. So let's look first at module 5 learning plan. So module 5 learning plan, you're going to notice the items that we're going to be doing through here. We're going to understand the concepts of using some reference geometry. We're going to use some different options to create those reference geometry elements. Creating an auxiliary view on a 2D drawing format, and then also create and adjust center lines as well, and how we can utilize those. So this is chapter 9 in our textbook, and we are going to be doing the rod guide design. Now, I want to let you know that I don't follow the tutorial step by step by step. You certainly may do it that way, but I'm going to show you, some little bit different variation on what they're doing there. Additionally, we will be following the rod guide drawing tutorial, the end of the chapter, but there are some differences that we are going to kind of exercise here to make sure that we're abiding by the dimensioning standards. So you'll be submitting your practice problems, which is going to be the rod guide model, and then also the rod guide drawing. And then here is the drawing guide for the rod guide tutorial, and we'll be referencing that later on in as we work through this problem. And then you're going to have assignment 5. Assignment 5 is going to be 3 drawings from the end of the chapter, really model and drawings from the end of the chapters that you'll be, using the things that we learn in our tutorial, and we're going to be applying those in that assignment. So with that, what I want to do is I'm going to go underneath my camera here. And as I said earlier, this is chapter 9, reference geometry and auxiliary views. And this is going to be that rod guide part that we're going to be creating here in this tutorial. Okay. So as we look at the process that they're going to be creating this with, and this is where I differ a little bit in how they create the geometry and in what order. So what they did here is they created a single sketch, and they extruded the whole thing to create the block. Now you might think, well, that seems efficient, but as we've talked about in the past, it's actually nice that each time you make a feature, better practice is going to be that we separate out the holes as a feature, their own feature. The fillets on the outsides here is their own feature. So how I'm going to actually create this is in 3 features instead. It's going to be the block. It's going to be just a rectangular block that we're going to extrude the depth. Then we're going to add the fillets around the outside as their own feature. And then that way they're on our design tree as a separate element and easier to go back and edit and do things with. And then we're going to put in the 4 holes using the hole wizard. Okay. So once we have that base in place, then we're going to be creating the geometry that we see here. So we're going to be creating a plane that is going to be at an angle. Now, because it's not one of our standard planes, top, front, or right side plane, this is what we call reference geometry. We're going to be creating some geometry so that we can then create this element that's on top, which is, I believe, the rod guide, where the rod's going to go through. And you'll notice that it's at an angle to the principal planes. Okay. So that reference geometry is going to help us to create the sketch to put this on. All right. And then once we have that in place, then we're going to add one more plane that is going to allow us to put the hole through the top. As we've known from previous drawings that we've done, you cannot select a rounded surface to sketch on, right? You have to create another, you have to go off of another plane. And so because there's not one of the principal views that we're going to be using here, we are going to then put some reference geometry in there in the form of a plane. So we'll go through that. Then the assignments that you have associated with this for assignment number 5 are going to be where you have to create some of this reference geometry. So practicing what we're learning here. So as we kind of go to and get started here in our tutorial officially, on page 9-5, this is where they're having you kind of open up the template, and we're going to be choosing the top plane, and we're going to start drawing then our block. Now, again, I'm not doing it in one single sketch. We're going to do it in 3 features, and then we'll kind of catch ourselves up in here. So I'm going to go to SolidWorks. I've already selected my English template. You can go ahead and select yours or put in manually if you wanted to continue to do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to create that base, that first rectangle. So I'm going to do an extrude boss base here. I'm going to select my top plane because this is like I'm looking straight down on it. And then I'm going to use the center rectangle. If you need to arrow down and go to the center rectangle, we're not doing corner rectangle, we're doing center rectangle. That way we can select the center origin. So it's tied to the origin, and I'm just going to kind of going up and to the right, and I'm going to left click again. And then I'm going to accept this rectangle. And then now I'm simply going to smart dimension the height. Okay. And that's going to be 3 inches. And, oh, I'm sorry. Nope, 2 inches, 2 inches. And the length is 3 inches. Okay. And where I'm getting this from is going to be on page 9-7. I'm just creating just a regular rectangle, and the height is going to be 2 inches and the length is going to be 3 inches. Okay. Now I'm going to keep it exactly like this. I'm going to keep it square and with the sharp corners, and we're going to exit out, and we are going to extrude that a distance of, I think it's 0.75, and it is 0.75. And the blind is a perfect thing to use. So I'm going to say, okay. So that's going to be the height of my block. Okay. Now I'm going to rename that feature to base. Okay, remember, we always need to rename our features, expand out our sketch to be sure that we can see that it's fully defined, because you will be doing a your screenshot for the completed model. Okay, so now I'm going to put my fillets on the corners here. Okay, so on the features tab, you need to go all the way over to the right. You're going to use the fillet command. I'm going to click on that, and now the first thing that we're going to put in here is going to be the size of our fillets. And I believe the size of the fillets are 1/4 inch. So right down here in the middle, 0.25 is going to be the radius for that fillet. And now up here in this box, these are the items to fillet. Remember, do not select surfaces, select edges. So make sure you hover over the edge that you want the fillet to go on. So I'm going to go on this edge right here. And when I click on it, left click on it, it's going to give me a preview. So that's where I want it to go. Next one, not the surface. You want to go on the edge. So make sure that that edge is highlighted. Then I'm just maneuvering around so I can see each one of these edges. And that's my 4th one. And now should be all set. And I'm going to say, okay. And there I am. So now I've got my fillets in here. I'm just going to, just so again, so it's a little bit easier to follow, I'm simply going to put 0.25 fillets. Okay, so you can rename those as well. Okay, so now I've got that in there. Now is a good time to do a file save as. I'm going to go to module 5 in my SolidWorks directory, and you can go where you are saving and you know where you can retrieve that. So this is called the Rod Guide tutorial. Actually, I'm going to put spaces. I'm just going to call it Rod Guide today. There we go. Save. And we're good. Well, now, one thing I want to remind you of, important thing, make sure that when you name this file, put it in all caps, okay? Because this is going to be what the drawing border grabs for the description. And remember, all text on any drawing has to be in all caps. Okay, so no lowercase here. Otherwise, I do take points off for that, because all text on every drawing needs to be in all caps. If you end up forgetting to do that, all you have to do is rename your model, put it in caps, and it'll update the drawing border as well. Okay, so we are good here. Now what we're ready to do is we're going to put the corner holes into each one of the corners. Now, if we look back at our drawing here, you're going to notice that our holes, 0.25-inch diameter holes, share the same center as that radius on the outside, okay, that we just created, that fillet, okay? So it's going to come in handy for us when we use the hole wizard. So make sure that you're on your feature tab and you're not in a sketch right now. If you need to hit escape to kind of get yourself out, feel free to do that. Come back to the feature tab and we're going to go to the hole wizard. Okay, hole wizard. Now you could put these in as an extrude cut if you wanted to. All right. Sometimes you might think it's easier that way. But what is nice about the hole wizard is when we start using things that are maybe, you know, like tapped holes and such, they're going to put the inside and the outside major and minor diameters in there correctly for us. And we don't have to do that construction. Additionally, we're going to see on our design tree that it's going to already call out the hole for us, so we don't have to do any renaming as well. So, so the hole wizard is actually a little bit more efficient, but it is sometimes a little tricky to use. So if you need some help or it's a good refresher here, let's go through the hole wizard together. So I'm going to click on the hole wizard. And I need to specify the type of hole that I'm going to have here. This is a simple through hole. So the third one on the top here is what I want to have selected. Now you can kind of go on a different one and you'll kind of know it's not real obvious that it's selected, but it should be a little more gray in the background. So once you have your hole selected, the next thing that we want to do is we want to identify that this is an ANSI inch increments because we're going to be doing a diameter of 1/4 inch. And then down here in the type, you want to have like all the drill sizes because we're going to be using a drill to create this. And that's what's nice about the hole wizard as well. You can only pick sizes that coincide with standard tooling. So you're assured that there are standard drills that are going to make that. And then what you want to do is you want to arrow down on the size here and find in the description here where 1/4 inch is. So 1/4 inch is right there. So you want to pick 1/4 inch. And then down here, just double check that your end condition is through all. And that's all we really need to worry about. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to do is once we have that filled out, we're going to go to the positions tab. We're going to go to position. And now here, do not click on 3D sketch. Do not click on 3D sketch. What it wants you to do is to select the face. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to select this surface here. Left click on that. And now you're going to notice that on the edge of your pencil, you have the opportunity to draw a hole. Now, what we're going to do is we're simply going to activate the radius. Don't click on it, just activate it by hovering over it. And you're going to notice that the center center comes alive. So now when I go over the top of it, I'm going to put that first hole on that center. Now I can continue. I can put another hole here. I'm going to activate this corner, and then I'm going to go right on top of that center, activate this corner. I'm going to go on top of that center, and then I'm going to activate that radius, and I'm going to go to that center. Okay. Now I'm done here. So all I need to do is hit escape to stop the hole on the end of my pencil there. I'm going to left click out here. And now what I want you to make sure that you have here is that all of the stars in the inside of your holes where the centers are, that they are a color black. And then at the bottom, this says fully defined. If you don't activate the centers of the fillets, those won't be fully defined. So all you have to do, if that happens to you, you're going to go up on top, you're going to add a relation, and you're going to click on the fillet, and you're going to click on the hole, and you're going to make those concentric. And then you've got it, okay? Because that's really all that we did by identifying that center for that placement. But I don't need to do that for mine because mine are already there. Okay? So again, you want to activate that radius when you're placing it. Don't click it, but then you click at its center. And then that way, the center of the hole shares the same center as the fillet, which is exactly what we want here. Okay. All right. So once you have those and you have it fully defined, you're now going to click the green check mark. And now you're going to notice that it's added to your design tree. And here, like I said earlier, it already gives you the right call out. You don't have to rename hole that you put in the hole wizard because it's identified like what it is. And then you're also going to want to expand out that feature so that I can see that both sketches are fully defined here. Okay. All right. So that's going to be that part. So since we added this feature, we're going to go to file and just do a save so that now we have that captured. Okay. So if I go underneath here, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So what we did is I now on page 9-8, I have my full base with the radiuses on the corners of the fillets on the corners as well as the holes. But again, we did not do it in one sketch. We intentionally did it in 3 sketches or 3 separate features so that we can easily edit and change things if we need to. Okay. Now the next section here says we're going to create an angled reference plane. All right. Well, we are going to create it, but let's see why we're going to create it. So if we go back to this original drawing, actually, I'm going to go to this one. Our drawing here of our part, this is on the front, and they get to this in that section, but I think it's nice to kind of know the whys before we get started. We already created our base right here. We want to add now this top rod guide. And you'll notice that it's on an angle to the principal view. So the principal view in our base is going to be the front view, the top view as it's sitting on, and then it's going to be the right side view. But those views or those planes are going to be mutually perpendicular 90 degrees to one another, okay? This is not at one of those principal views. This is 30 degrees off of, if you would, the front plane. If the front plane is sitting like this is just rotated 30 degrees, okay? So what we need to do is, because we don't have a principal plane that we can sketch on, we now need to create a reference plane so that we can sketch at that 30-degree angle. Okay. So, so that's what we're going to do next. And that's where on page 9-8, that's the section that they're talking about. Okay. So, be sure I know what I'm doing. I do. Okay. And on the next pages here are what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to left click off. So I don't have anything selected here in my design tree. I'm going to kind of rotate this out. And what we're going to do is on the features tab. Okay. So make sure you're on the features tab and you don't have anything selected. We're going to go over to the end here where it says reference geometry, if you hover over it, but we are going to arrow down. Okay, arrow down. And this is going to give us our options for reference geometry. Okay, so I am going to start by creating an axis. We're going to create an axis at the intersection of the front and the right side of the right planes. So we're going to create an axis. Okay, and we want to create an axis, and we're going to expand out our design tree up here. Remember, whenever we go in and it kind of does something else over here, it's going to pull that out. If we left click on that, we are going to select the front plane and the right plane, because at the intersection of those 2 planes, we want to create this axis. So if you look here, it created an axis in there at the intersection of that plane. Okay, that's actually the very center of our part. Okay, so we're going to say, okay, that looks good. All right. And you don't need to rename this axis. That's just going to be our first axis. No problem. All right. I'm going to left click off of that so it's not selected. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that axis to create another plane at that 30-degree angle. So I'm going to go back up here to reference geometry, arrow down, but this time we're going to create a plane. Okay. Now, our first reference is going to be, so when this is selected, if you need to select blue in there, like left click it, we're going to use axis 1. So you can either click it on the design tree or you can click it in the graphics area. So you'll notice that here for reference, our first reference, it's going to be the axis number 1. Okay. Now, the second reference we're going to do is going to be the front plane, because the front plane is what we're going to be measuring an angle for which that's going to go on. Right now, this plane is pivoting or rotating around the axis. So it's kind of like right there on the axis, and now it's going to rotate around it, but it has to know, like, how far do I want to go? So we're going to go to our second reference and we're going to reference the front plane. Okay, front plane. And now from the front plane, right now, it assumed that we want to be perpendicular. So you'll notice if you move this around a little bit, plane 1 is perpendicular or 90 degrees to my front plane, but I don't want it to be that. So right now it's 90 degrees here. I want it to go, did I want it to go? I want it to go 30 degrees, right? Off of that. So down here in where it says angle, add an angle, you're going to click that and that's going to expand out. And right now the default is 90 degrees. Okay, so click on angle and it says 90 degrees. We want to put in here 30 degrees and hit enter. Okay, so right now it took 30 degrees from that angle, right? Let's do this. Let's flip offset. And you'll notice now it's here. Okay. And that's where we want it to be 30 degrees from, if you would, horizontal there. Okay. Now the axis is still at the center and this is our plane going to the right. So again, you want to have axis as number 1, the first reference. The second reference is the front plane by expanding this out. And then you want to hit degrees, put in 30, and then click flip offset if you need to get it to look like what we have here. So here's the front plane in pink and our new plane is 30 degrees from it. Okay. All right. Once that's in place, I'm going to hit the green check mark. Okay. All right. And I'm going to leave that name as plane 1. That's totally fine. Okay. If you wanted to change it, that's totally up to you. So now we want to select that plane because that's going to be what we're going to, that's what we are going to be sketching on. Okay. And so I'm going to keep plane 1 selected. I'm going to say extrude boss base, and it's going to go right to the sketch mode. Now, what happened here is that now you're like at an angle. All right. It kind of like tipped it for us, and that's not real convenient. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this so that we have that base horizontal on our screen. So I'm going to hold the Alt key and I'm going to do my left arrow key on my keyboard. So hold the Alt key and then do the left facing arrow. Okay. And it'll do increments of this. Okay. Now, once you get this horizontal, as you see here, and what I want you to double check is the dihedron down in the corner here, we want the Y up and we want the X to the right. That means I'm like looking at it in my front plane, if you would. Okay. So again, the Alt and then either your left or your right arrow key on your keyboard while you're holding the Alt key. Right. You could, do it at an angle like that. That's totally fine. I just like to have it horizontal and kind of look at it a little bit nicer. Okay. Now let's go and look back here and kind of see where we're at. So what we've done is we have our plane in place. We selected that. We're going to start sketching on it. We rotated our view so that we're now horizontal. The axis is vertical. And now what we're going to do is we're going to, on top of here, in this area right here, we're going to start sketching that form. Okay. Now I'm going to skip ahead a couple pages because I think it's important to know the dimensions that we're dealing with. So what we're going to do is we are going to create this part right here. And then we're going to extrude that. And then we're going to add our hole after. Okay. Don't do the hole all at the same time here. We're going to do it as 2 separate features. They do it as 1. It's better, really better to do it as 2. So that's what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do is we are going to put an axis in here, a center axis. And then we're going to use that dynamic mirror function to sketch the profile up to underneath where this arc is going to start. Okay. So we're not going to do the arc. We're just going to go from here out and up. And then we're going to stop there. And then it's going to mirror on the other side at the very same time. So going back to SolidWorks, Now, before I go into my dynamic mirror mode, I know that I need a center line that this is going to go about. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to arrow down underneath line, and I'm going to select center line. Okay. And then I'm going to go down to my origin, and I'm going to start the center line at the origin, and we're going to go straight up and making sure that it's a vertical center line. I'm just going to zoom out here a little bit, make sure it's tall enough, tall-ish. And then I'm going to hit escape or the green check mark. Okay. So I need that center line in place. Now I can go up to tools, down to sketch tools, and then up to dynamic mirror. So tools, sketch tools, dynamic mirror. Then I'm going to click. And now the message is saying, please select the sketch line that you want to mirror about. And that's going to be that center line that we just created. So I'm going to left click on my center line. Then what we're going to do is now we're ready to start doing our drawing. So we're going to draw a line. So go back to the regular line here. And I am simply going to start down here about here-ish. And I'm going to do the left profile, something like this, right there. Then I'm going to hit escape. And you'll notice that it mirrored it on the other side. This way, the behavior of this sketch is going to be whatever happens on one side, the same thing happens on the other for dimensioning as well. Okay. Now I want to go in. I'm done using that dynamic mirror. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go up to tools, sketch tools, and to deactivate it or to toggle it off, we just simply click on dynamic mirror and it's going to go off. And you'll notice that the two lines on that center line went away. So it's no longer in that mode. So you have to toggle it off before starting to do other things.
Is that different than mirror entities?
Yes, it is different than mirror entities. Mirror entities, well, I shouldn't say that. It'll act the same after you have it created. But what's nice about the dynamic mirror is if I were to do a mirror, I would have to draw this all at once and then mirror over that separately. It kind of is a nice little shortcut because it's doing the mirroring as you're drawing it on that side. So it's a little bit of an efficiency, but in the end, you're correct. Mirror entities would really, you would accomplish the same thing, but a couple different steps. Okay, so now I have these in place. I'm gonna zoom in here. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to, well, not last, but the next thing I'm going to do is going to go up to the regular line here. And I'm going to connect the bottoms because this has to be a closed sketched in the end. And I don't want to forget to add that. So I added a line to connect the bottom. And then our arc is going to go over the top to close it up on the top, but we're not quite there yet. I want to fully define these dimensions here. There are three relations we're going to add. So add relation. The first one I'm going to add is I want this vertical line and this vertical line to be collinear. Okay. And I'm just going to check this one because I forget. Make sure that you hit escape so that there isn't anything selected. Go back to add relations and bear with me here. I want this one and this one to be collinear. Oh, okay, good. It added that. And then I want the same thing for this line and this line, but hit escape because those two last lines are still selected. So we don't want anything selected. We want to go to add relations. Make sure that this is empty. If it's not, hit escape, unselect, and then go back in. And I want this line and this line to be collinear as well. Now, collinear, what that means is that if one side moves up or down, the other side will move with it. That kind of ties them together. Okay, now I want to add my dimensions. So I'm going to go up to Smart Dimension, and we're going to look on page 915. And it looks like from this line to this line, the width of this, now this is gonna go vertical with our dimension because we tilted the whole screen, okay? If you would, the drawing. So this is gonna be 1.5 wide. I know that the height over here is 0.25. The width here is 0.25. The height here is also 0.25. So I think they're all 1/4 of an inch at the bottom there. But then from the end point of this line here, so don't select the line, select the end point in this case, to our horizontal bottom line. Okay, so that dimension right there, point, the end point to the bottom line is going to be 0.75. Okay, 0.75. Now, right now we're fully defined, which is good. I kind of like sometimes, even though this isn't the sketch that I'm going to extrude, I like to kind of get things defined because then I'm not wondering where they're at. So I'm fully defined right now, all right, with my dimensions. And again, if we go back to page 915, these were the dimensions that I added right now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add the arc on the top. So I'm going to go over here. Now, there's a couple ways you can do that. This is how I find it to be the easiest way to do it. Instead of doing an arc, I actually do a circle. Okay, so I'm going to do a circle. I'm going to activate this endpoint. I'm going to go straight in and I'm going to click here when I see those dotted lines. This way I know that my center is going to be in line with the top of my form. And then I'm going to go directly to one side or the other. And when that endpoint activates, that's going to be my radius. And I'm going to say, okay. Now, if I left click off of that, unselect it, my circle goes to dark. It's fully defined, but I got to get rid of the parts that I don't want. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit and we're going to grab trim and I'm going to trim away this part. And again, this is a drag over just the portion of the line that you don't want. So I got rid of all of that arc and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. This one, and that little one in there. Don't forget that one. And I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm still fully defined. It's black all the way around, fully defined at the bottom. So I'm ready to extrude. Okay. So once I have that, I'm not putting the hole in the center. We are going to do that as a separate feature, okay, as a whole. So I'm gonna exit my sketch here. And now I'm gonna kind of rotate a little bit. Right now it's on blind and it's all going in, you know, forward. I want this to be a mid plane. And it's 1 inch, okay. And it's gonna be 1 inch. So I'm gonna hit okay, make sure merge result is selected and this looks good. This looks good. I'm going to say, okay. And now I've got that in place. So I'm going to rename this feature and we'll call this the rod guide because I think that's actually it, a rod guide. Okay. All right. Not a bad idea to do a quick save. And then the next feature we're going to add is going to be the hole that's going to go through this top portion. Okay. So if we look, I got to look at what size that is. It's a diameter of 3/4. So again, I'm putting it in as a separate feature. It's really it's a better way to kind of organize your features. So again, I'm not putting it in at the sketch level. I'm gonna create its own feature. So 3/4 inch diameter there. And it's going to share the same axis as that radius here. So that means I'm going to do an extrude cut. You could do a hole wizard here. Actually, why don't we? Let's do it. Let's keep kind of practicing the hole wizard because there are some nice advantages. This is going to be another hole. And ANSI inch, all drill sizes. Oopsie. All drill sizes. And this time we're going to be at 3/4 of an inch. So this is going to be down further. 7/8, 3/4 right here. So make sure that you do the 3/4 and then we're going to position. Okay. Do not hit 3D sketch. Go right over to this front surface here. And we're going to do what we did on the last one. We're going to activate that arc. And then we're going to go to that center right there. And then we're simply going to hit escape. And I'm going to left click off and you're going to notice that that star in the center should be black. So if you have this sharing the same center, it should be black and you should be fully defined. If you don't, then you're gonna have to go up to display, delete relations, add relation, and then you're gonna select the arc and the circle, and you want those to be concentric. Okay. All right, once we have this, we're gonna hit OK. Okay, there we go. And now it placed my hole, and you'll notice in my design tree, it automatically names it correctly for me, as well as expand out the sketches so that they are fully defined. You can exit off of there. So yeah, so there we go. So not a bad idea to do a quick save. And we've got one more feature to add. So I'm going to go back over here. We've got our hole through. So we're all ready to this point. The last feature that we need to add, and I'm going to go forward here, is we are going to add a hole to the top here. All right, but it's only going through that portion, that wall of that rod guide. So we are going to need to create a plane for that to be on, because we can't go on the top plane. We can't go on the right plane or the front plane because it's not going to be right in the right orientation. So we need to elevate a plane up so that it goes through the center of that hole, and we're going to sketch on that plane and then extrude cut all the way up. Okay, so let me go back to SolidWorks, and we're going to now create another reference plane. Now, this time we don't need to do the axis because we're not rotating it differently to the primary axis. All we're going to do is we are going to create another plane going straight through the center of that hole, but it's going to be parallel to this top surface. Okay, so we're going to go make sure that you're on your features tab. We're going to go all the way over to the right, arrow down, and we want to create a plane. And our first reference, we only need one reference here. Our first reference is going to be the top surface here. Okay, so I'm going to click on that surface, and now you're going to notice that it creates an offset plane here, and the offset distance that it went through is identified right here underneath your face one first reference. It's right now elevating that plane above by 0.1 inches, but we want it to be 3/4 of an inch. Remember how the height from the bottom, from this surface here to the center of that hole was 0.75? We want that to be where this plane goes through. So we're going to change this dimension from 0.1 to 0.75. And now notice that it goes straight up and it's through the center. Okay. Now, if you need to, let's say yours went down instead of up, there is this flip offset. You can always flip the offset one way or the other. Okay. I want it through the center of my hole. And that's all we need to do for this one because it's parallel to that. So I'm going to hit the green OK. And now I've got a plane 2. That's going to be my next sketch plane that I'm going to create my hole on so that we can extrude it up through that one wall. So I am going to unselect that plane so that I don't have it on. So don't select this plane right now. And we're going to go to, oh, I'm sorry, do select the plane and go to extrude cut because that's already then going to be the surface that we go on. And now we're looking straight down on plane 2, which is going to be our sketch plane. Remember how when we started this, we added our rectangle in so that the center of it would be on the axis. Here it comes in handy because all we're going to do is we're going to draw our circle on the origin on the plane that we just created. Okay, and it'll be easy to fully define it. So we're going to go up to circle here. Activate, if you have to do it, zoom in, activate the origin. There we go. Mine's really, I got to get really close to it. You might have to do yours too. So once you activate it on the origin, left click for that radius, and then you're going to smart dimension, smart dimension, and it's going to be 0.25. Accept that dimension, click off of it. See? And you'll notice that you're fully defined by only putting the diameter on there because we have it on the origin. Okay. If you don't, then put the center and the origin concentric to each other. Okay. All right. Now that my sketch is fully defined and I'm ready to extrude cut through, I'm going to hit exit. And you'll notice that right now it's putting it down through the part. I don't want it to go there. So I'm going to go next to my blind and I'm going to toggle it so it goes up through the part. Now, I don't want this to be a blind because it goes through with 1 inch, but if it changes and it gets bigger than 1 inch, it won't go all the way through. So instead, I'm going to hit a through all, and then it'll go through anything that's above. Okay, and that looks good to me. So I'm going to hit OK. And now you'll notice that your hole is going through. All right. And I'm going to do a file, save. Okay. Now my part is created. My part is created. Make sure that don't forget to rename this last feature. This is the 0.25 diameter hole. Expand your sketch. And now this is going to be file save. This is going to be your screenshot. You do a fit. Scooch over. This is going to be your screenshot for your model in your module 5 practice problems. Okay. So, so go ahead and take your screenshot, and then that'll be the first part, the model part for our module 5 practice problems. We will be back with the second part of this tutorial.